Hey guys, Chef Deuce here. Welcome back to our channel. We are going to do a deep fried turkey. It's that time of year, so let's get started. Here's our 14-pound turkey. Okay, and when you're talking about doing a deep fried turkey, it's real important to make sure your turkey is thawed out. I can't stress that enough. If your turkey's a little frozen, there could be pockets of moisture in there, so when you put it in the fryer, that could really make a big burst of steam and grease to splatter all over the place. So you really want to make sure your turkey is nice and thawed out. So once you have it out of the package, there's a couple things you have to think about. Most of the time when you get a turkey at the grocery store, the neck and all the innards will be stuck in. And the neck is usually in this front cavity. I took this out, it was right in this part, I took it out here. And then this bag has the heart and the kidneys and all that stuff, that's usually up here. I have actually cooked the turkey with that left inside. It's not the end of the world, but it's not what you want, especially when you're deep frying. Another thing to remember, deep frying turkey, you want to dry off the turkey as much as possible. So you have your turkey here, you're going to make sure all the cavities, everything is dry as possible. Take out any pockets of fat. If you see something like this that's in the inside, you can just cut that off. After your turkey is dry, then you're going to want to inject the turkey first, okay? So right here we have about 1.5 pounds of butter, a little bit of my favorite hot sauce, and salt and pepper, and that's it. I don't put the Cajun seasoning in here because it's got bigger particles that can get stuck in the injector. There are all sorts of different injectors online. This is a pretty basic one. We ordered it from Amazon. All you're gonna do is suck some of the injection up, and then you wanna get all the different spots. We're gonna start in the breast, and then this one has holes so you don't have to move it around, but you wanna pull out. You wanna push in, and then pull out as you're pushing down. So the injection goes throughout the breast. Some people ask me if I brine my turkey. I do brine if I'm doing a roasted or a smoked, but when you're doing a deep fried, you want to get this Cajun butter injection. Typically, the thought process is either you inject or you brine. You don't do both. So that's what we're going with here. So you want to do both sides of the breast, and this is going to obviously add flavor and moisture to your turkey. I love doing a fried turkey for a couple different reasons. One, it has a really great flavor and crispy skin when it comes out. But two, on Thanksgiving, if you think about it, you're doing so much inside the kitchen and in the oven specifically. You got your stuffing, your roasted sweet potatoes, you're baking a pie, your dinner rolls, everything's in the oven on Thanksgiving. And this is one thing that can take some pressure off you so you have enough oven space to do everything else you need. Because this is going to be done in a fryer outside. So once you get the breast done, then you can kind of turn it over and get some of the thigh on the side of the leg. You can see that pump up as we inject it. Cooking is about patience sometimes. I know a lot of times in the kitchen, especially the professional kitchen, people rush around and try to get it done as quickly as possible. But, you know, I always say give yourself enough time, go through, make sure you're doing a good job, and get all the spots you want to get. And another thing to remember about deep frying turkey is you do not want to get a giant turkey for this. This is a quicker cooking process. It's only going to take between an hour and 45 minutes. So you want to get about a 12 to 14 pound turkey. Turkey is about 13.5 pounds. You do not want to go any bigger than 14 pounds. It's going to take too long in the fryer and it's going to get too crusty on the edges and not cooked all the way on the inside. So I've done that by mistake too. You don't want to do that. You want to get about a 12 to 14 pound turkey is the best for the deep fried process. All right. So we injected the breast, the legs, the thighs. You put a little bit in the wings. Turkey wings is actually some of my favorites. And again, this is just butter, hot sauce, salt, and pepper. I don't put the Cajun Rub in here because it can get clogged up in the injector. So that is all done. Then we are going to take a little bit of oil just to give the skin a nice coat, even though some of the butter's on there already, but that's okay. Then you're going to take your rub. We have a Deuce's Wild Cajun Rub, Any Cajun rub you have is fine. I suggest not doing one with sugar in it. Some of them have sugar, this one does not, because you're gonna go into a hot fryer, that'll get black real fast. It's gonna turn out real dark anyways, because that's the nature of the rub, but I would stay away from rubs with sugar in it for this application. And you wanna do all sides, get underneath the wing, in the back. And then after you're done rubbing, you're gonna let this turkey sit for about 45 minutes. It's best if it comes up to a room temperature, because that's gonna make the cooking process a little more even, okay? You don't wanna have it be ice cold in the middle, because that's just gonna make it take longer to cook. And this is more of a quick cooking process. You wanna get some on the inside too. You wanna season that cavity, that adds a lot of flavor. And like I said before, don't worry. Some people worry that they're not going to be able to make a gravy because they don't have the drippings, because they're making it in the fryer. I don't like taking the drippings to make the gravy, even if I am doing it in the oven. I like using the bones and mirepoix and making the gravy totally separate. That's a whole other video, and we'll get into that, I promise. Okay, so you have your turkey. It's injected and it's seasoned. Now we're gonna let it sit out, get up to room temperature, and then we're gonna go outside and talk about the frying process. So we have our fryer set up here. So there's the stand that's hooked up to the propane tank, and then we have our pot with our peanut oil in it. Peanut oil has a high smoke point, so that's what you wanna look for, something with a high smoke point when you're doing a deep frying process. Then you wanna get a long stem thermometer, and you want to get your grease up to 300 degrees. Probably the most important thing to remember is do not fill your grease up too high. If you do, when you lower this turkey down, it'll overflow. And that's when you hear about all the disaster stories. If you're doing this in the garage, it can start things on fire and stuff like that. Make sure you're outside, you have enough space to work, and you do not fill your grease up too high. Those are probably the things that are, people talk about this being a dangerous process. On top of that, you want to make sure your turkey's thawed out, and when you lower it in, you go slowly, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. Our grease, one more thing I wanted to mention. So this thermal pen, if you do not have a long stem thermometer, you can use this to actually take the temperature of your oil. So you can see this actually goes up to 500 degrees. So right here, we're about 360, which is okay, because as soon as we let this down, it's gonna drop the temperature. You wanna put this in very slowly. Once you start hearing that bubbling, that's hitting the grease. If you just drop it in, you're gonna have a big mess, and it's very dangerous. Take your time, drop it down slow. Last thing you want to do is overflow this pot. All right, so you can see how high this grease is. We only had it a little less than half full, and it's already with the bubbles going towards the top. So that shows you have to be really careful not to put too much grease in there. And now it's pretty much 45 minutes to an hour. After about 45 minutes, then we're gonna take its temperature using your thermal pen, and you wanna look for 160-ish degrees, because it's gonna carry over about 10 degrees, and then you're good to go. And remember, once it comes out of the fryer, you're gonna let it rest. This was just cooking hot and hard for an hour, so you wanna let it rest for at least 20 minutes before you slice into it. And you can time this with all the other food you got going on in the kitchen. So once the turkey's done, then you can make sure you can still have time to get other stuff ready in the kitchen, because you know that's gonna rest for at least 20 minutes. All right guys, so we got our fried turkey out of the fryer. It took about 45 minutes. We set it at 350. The temperature drops down when you put the whole turkey in there, but it did come back up to about 350 degrees. And again, it took about 45 minutes to cook a 14-pound turkey. We took it to about 165 degrees, took it out of the fryer, and now we're gonna let it rest for about 20 minutes. All right, guys, so we have our whole fried turkey here. It's well rested, and we're gonna show you how to carve it now. So I always tell people at Thanksgiving to bring their turkey back. Show everybody with the platter what it looks like, and then bring it back in the kitchen where you're comfortable and you know how to carve it. First thing we're gonna do is take off the leg quarters, and basically you can see you can just follow this line down and then use your hand to pull it out. And that joint should pop right out if it's cooked well. Okay, you can use your knife to cut it off. Take these wings down from right here. And again, if it's cooked well, it's gonna break off where it should, right by the joints. You can just use your knife to pop it off. You have your wings. And then for the breastbone, you see this is the wishbone, and then the breastbone is here. And we're just gonna follow that down. You're just gonna get on one side of that breastbone and follow it down that angle. Take your time. That whole breast is gonna come off at one low. Try to keep that skin intact because that's nice and yummy. Then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Follow it down. And then you can turn it and you see where that Y goes. And you follow your knife down. Where it comes across. You can almost pull it off with your hand. So now you have your breasts, your wings, and your legs, and your thighs. So what I do is I'll slice this off. And again, I think it's important to keep the meat and the skin together. There was one little piece of bone from the inside there. But then you're gonna carve this. Nice slices. And I really like doing this like this. I tell everybody, take your time, go back in the kitchen, do it where you're comfortable. You have your nice big cutting board. You try to carve the turkey in front of everybody at the table. To me, that's uncomfortable and you're not gonna be able to get everything. So now, every piece of turkey gets a little piece of that crunchy skin. You do the other breast the same way. Then for the legs, cut those right down on the joint so the drumstick comes off. I leave that whole. I know somebody always in my family likes taking that drumstick, so I leave it together. Same with this one. And then for the meat for the thighs, I just pull it right off the bone. And you can do this if it's cooked properly. If it's undercooked, you're going to be struggling with that. And then I put this in nice slices too. Right onto your platter. Same thing with this one. If you want to work your knife around that bone a little bit, that works too. Pull it right out. Go. Cut the tips off. Wings. And those are on there. And you have a nice fried turkey display. I hit it with a little bit more of the Cajun seasoning right on top. See how moist and juicy that is. You can taste the Cajun butter inside, the Cajun seasoning outside, the nice moistness from being cooked so quickly. Really good. One of my favorite ways to cook a turkey. All right, guys, that does it for our video on Cajun deep fried turkey. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments.